Well, I think it's probably time. We're not rushed, but we might as well get this started. I hope lots of you have lots of questions. I'm Stan O'Neill, your moderator today, and I am certainly delighted to have these four gentlemen up here that I consider friends and longtime acquaintances. There are two or three people in the audience that I would like to recognize. Got Duane's wife, Jo, and his daughter, Cindy, and Jan, Brent's wife, and Denny Hassett is outside babysitting the dog, so she won't be in to join us, I don't think.
No.
What we want to do today, we want to make this as informal, but as informative as you would like it. I'm going to ask these gentlemen to, rather than me pontificate and read stuff, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves just a little bit. And then after they do that, we'll open this up for discussion, and you can ask any questions you'd like to ask. You can tell any lies on any of them that you'd like to do, and then we will go from there. So we are not pressed for time, so don't be scared to ask lots of questions, because we want to hear the stories that these guys would like to tell. Duane, I'm going to cheat and ask you to start this out. You're the furthest away from me, and I would like for you to give me a little bit about your life and your history and anything you'd like for us to know about you.
Well, they told me when I come in here I had to tell it everything I know. And one thing about it, you're not going to be here long. I'm Duane Walker. I live at Canton. I've been blessed many, many times in my life. And once when I grew up at Carnero. If you ever heard of Carnero, west of Salina, went to school at Brookville and got married to a Lorraine girl. Did pretty good there. And we lived in Ellsworth for a few years, and then I moved to Canton to be in the grain business there, and I lasted there for 40 years and run the horses and the cattle and stuff for that period of time. Kind of grew in numbers as it grew in demand. The horses did. They had to pay their own way. And I guess I gotta tell you about the horses that were recognized for having show horses, good horses, and that it's easy to get one. I found out when I worked down or started down at the elevator, I ran the feed truck part of the time, and I was manager, but I wanted to meet my customers. I wanted to get to know the country and meet my customers. So I ran the feed truck part of the time just to see what was going on with people I was doing business with. And sometimes I delivered ammonia in tanks and that. I delivered a tank of ammonia to a fellow over by Durham. And I was just going down the road heading back towards town with an empty, and I saw a prettiest little filly running out there in the pasture south of his house. I stopped and looked at her because she's pretty. That's all I could see. And then I went in and a little trap there and looked at her, and she's a good one too. And she was at the home of one of the first quarter horse breeders in this part of the country, and he raised good horses. And so next time I saw him, I asked him, would she be for sale? Well, that mare, her mother belongs to my daughter, but the filly's sold. And I said, did she leave the country? No, I sold her to my banker here in town. I said, well, if he decides to sell her, why, if he wants to sell her, why, let me know. I'd be interested in buying her. We needed a project for our oldest son for 4-H. So, sure enough, come spring, that was in the fall, and come spring, he called me and he said, say, that banker's daughter don't really have any interest in any horses. You can buy that filly if you want to. So I went immediately over there and looked at her to make sure she's all right and talked to the banker. Yeah, I said, what do you want for her? Well, I'd like to get my money back. And I said, well, what's it going to take to get your money back? He said, $300. And I said, well, I could use her, but I don't have $300. How about you're in the banking business? You loan me $300? And he said, I think I can do that. He was a little bit hesitant, but he said he had asked Irvin Christensen, by the way, is the man that lived there and was his daughter that owned the mare. And so he said, I talked to Irvin about you. You'll be all right. So that's the way I got Frosty Money, and she turned out to be quite a mare. Those of you that are familiar with quarter horses, she's the mother of a very popular, successful stallion, Robert Redford, and there was a roan horse that was a full brother to him. Can't think of that.
Torimo.
Can't think that horse's name. That's stupid, but that's the way my memory is. Anyway, she was very successful. We showed her and sold her, and then as far as what we knew about showing, the AQHA, American Quarter Horse Association, called us at the end of the year and wanted a picture of her. And we asked them, well, why did they want a picture of her? And they said, she's the High Point Youth Mare of the world this year. And we didn't know there was a contest or that there was such a thing awarded. You know, we just didn't know. All we knew was the headquarters was in Amarillo, and they'd do what you wanted them to do if you send them enough money. So that's how you get a show horse. You deliver a tank of ammonia and watch what's in the pastures when you go by it. And I can't tell you how much pleasure and all she brought to us. Then I was lucky enough to be able to buy her mother, and then I bought her grandmother, and then I bought a half-sister to her, and our broodmare band was really headed up by that family of mares, and we still have some of that blood. And there's two fellows, I got to tell you, there was two fellows that helped me a whole lot, three actually, in getting started in the business, learning about the business. And that was Ronnie and Glenn Cruther, some of you know them, and Irvin Christensen. And I'm pleased to see Gordon and Pat here, Irvin's son, and good people. Believe me, good people with good horses. I got a little carried away, but I wanted to tell them how to get a show horse.
Just right. You're the one to tell us. Wouldn't you like to be able to go out and pick up a world champion or a world champion producer for your own son or daughter to start out with? Next on our list, it looks to me like Denny Hassett.
I'm Denny Hassett, and I grew up in McLeod, Kansas, and went to school there. And my dad farmed with horses. He had a pulling team and everything, and he wanted me to do the horses and this and that, and I told him I didn't care nothing about them horses. I didn't want no horses around. I had a one-eyed pony that I'd have to ride once in a while, but I didn't like it very well. And all through high school and stuff like that, I liked cars. I didn't drag a race professionally, but I'd done a little bit on the highways when you wasn't supposed to. But anyway, to get started in the horses, I had a good friend, George Wingate, and his dad used to go to a lot of the open shows and stuff like that. And my dad raised a little old gray mare out of one of his pulling mares, and he bought a quarter horse stud, and he come home from the sale and kicked this stud out with the mares, and we got a colt. But anyway, he wanted me to ride. I said, I'm not going to ride no horse. I'd rather walk after the cows and do that than ride that horse, you know. So anyway, George talked me to go to the horse show with him. They showed open shows. So I went with them and a couple times, and I thought, you know, that ain't all bad. I think I might try that. So I started riding this gray mare, and I thought I was doing pretty good, so they took me and taken her to a horse show. So I went to Independent, Missouri to an open horse show, and they used to have a pattern called the fence row. I don't know if you remember that or not, but anyway, I showed in it. I got ready to come up to the judge in the ringster. I didn't see him. They was in a little building there, and I guess I put on quite a show. I don't know what I did, but I went there, and the judge said, "You been doing this very long, young man?" I said, "Nope, my first show." He said, "Well, you stay with it. You done all right." So I go out, and I tell my friend, I said, "I think I'm going to place in this deal." There's about 20 head in the class. I said, I think I'm going to place. This guy told me I done it. Well, he didn't place, and I come back. I said, I'm not going to go with him horse shows. I said, they tell you they like you, and then they don't even give you anything. I said, I don't need to do this deal. I said, no way. I'm not going to do it. But anyway, I kept going to a few shows, and I was at a show, and a guy named Claude Trueblood, he owned a horse called Red Buddy T, and he was one of the horse shows. His son rode this horse, and he said, you know, if you'd learn to take leads on that mare in the pleasure classes, you might do all right. I said, what's a lead? I said, I hear this all the time, but what's a lead? And he told me, and he said, what do you wear them spurs for? Well, I said, well, everybody else is wearing them. So he said, you know, all you're doing is aggravating her. You're not doing anything. If you can't knock a little hair off once in a while, you might as well not wear them. So I said, okay. So I went home, and I practiced and everything. And that's how I got started in the deal. And I worked a job with the gas company in Topeka for 10 years. Started in 60, and August 1st in 1970, I decided I'd train horses. And I quit my job, went to the bank, borrowed the money, and built me a barn in Tonganoxie, and got started and rode reiners back then. I was going to be a reiner horse trainer, and liked it, and done respectably well with it. And then I started doing the all-around type horses and everything, and then in 1989, I quit riding. They started changing the style and this and that, and I went strictly to the halter horses. And we did a book, Went In at Halter, and it's been out for several years. And I've been thankful to have a lot of nice horses to show, and a lot of wonderful customers and everything. And that's how I got started in the horse business. And I just more or less retired here about 2 years ago. So I still got one horse. My daughter's going to show it. But it's been very, very good to me and everything. So.
Thank you, Denny. Next on our row here is our reining horse trainer supreme, Brent Wright. Brent, would you pontificate a little bit here?
I don't even know what that means. But I'll try.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good word. I live in Ottawa, Kansas, and we've lived there since 1987, I guess. But I was raised at Iola, Kansas, and grew up in town, actually. I was born in Bronson, Kansas, and I grew up in the grain business too, Duane. My dad had a grain elevator there in Bronson for years, and that's what we did. But both of my granddads liked horses, and my mom and dad didn't have anything to do with horse. They didn't care anything about a horse. But I spent all my time out at my Grandpa Nitcher's, and he had quite a few horses around. He was a Baptist preacher too, but he had horses, and I don't know, you couldn't call him a horse trainer, but he was a horseman. I mean, he grew up working horses, and he was around horses all his life. But he accumulated a few mares there, and he was breeding these things every year and raising some colts, and he was getting a little too old to get on a colt back in those days, and I was 9 or 10. My brother was 3 years older, and he'd put us on those colts and lead us around a little bit. Then most of them were been handled enough, you know, but he'd lead us around a lot there just a little bit, and he said, and then he'd unsnap the hauled the rope to you on your own, boy. And it usually didn't turn out too good, but that's how we got started. And our big thing back then was the Armistice Day Parade in Iola every year. And we'd go to town. Grandpa lived in Gas City, which is 3 miles east of Iola. And we'd get on these green horses and ride them to town, down the ditch alongside the highway, 54. And it was 3 miles to town, and it was just a wreck looking for a place to happen. A wonder we didn't get killed, but we survived. And we get to town. By the time we got to town, they was kind of walking with their heads down and got through the parade all right. But that was, and I spent all my growing up years, out there with him, and a lot of fond memories. And then after I got out of school, Jan and I got married in '71, so we've been married for 49 years now, I think. So got to be a milestone coming up. Thank you. She's put up with a lot, but I started out. I was farming and kind of helping with that elevator business a little bit, and riding a few horses on the side. And one thing led to another, and people started bringing me colts to start and this and that. I got started roping when I was in college, and I really liked to rope, and had a friend down at Columbus, Kansas, that go down there and we'd rope, and one thing led to another. Got to starting some colts, and then about 1975 or 6, I think Ernie and I went. No, it was after that maybe. A neighbor and I had gone to the World Show at Oklahoma City, and I'd never been to a horse show. I don't think hardly. I sure hadn't been to a show of that caliber. So we went down there just to watch, and I saw the rope horses and the judged rope horses and the cutters and the reiners and the cow horses, and my jaw dropped open. I'd never seen anything like that. And so I thought, I'll go home and start doing that. So I went home and started pulling and kicking, and doing a lot of crude things, just trying to get him to do some of that stuff. And our ground, and we lived down at Uniontown at that time, and this lived on the river, and the old ground was pretty black and gummy, and it wasn't a very good place to teach a horse to stop. But we, did the best we could there. And then in '87 we moved to Ottawa and bought a place there, a barn, and a pretty nice outdoor pen. And we've redone that outdoor pen a number of times to get the footing right where you can run and stop on it. And I tell people I got more money in my outdoor pen than most people got in an indoor. We've changed the ground a lot, but anyway, Lord's blessed me with a lot of good horses over the years, and just got to go into some NRHA shows, National Reining Horse Association shows, and got, when you start out something new like that, you're going to get your nose bloodied a little bit, and I did, but I went to the Lazy Classic the first year I went to an NRHA show, and came home and told my wife, well, we're either going to get better at this or we're going to do something else. And so we, got a little better maybe, and as the things progressed, we got some little better quality horses, and I've had some nice horses over the years.
As they say, the rest is history. All right, CA, let's hear a little bit about all your accomplishments.
Well, I'm not anywhere near up with these guys, but anyway.
We know better.
Except I'm older. Well, let's see. I was born and raised in God's country, Oklahoma. Excuse me. 1931, out in western Oklahoma, and raised on the ranch there, and didn't know what a registered horse was at that time. And I rode a horse to school for the first 5 years I was in school, to a one-room schoolhouse. Then later on, probably when I think I was a sophomore in high school, we moved to Woodward, Oklahoma, sold the ranch and moved to Woodward, and then I got involved a little bit in, along with the ranching thing. I worked on some ranches out there, and then I started roping. Of course, I'd been roping in the pasture, but it was a little bit different when it come to time. So started roping, and then when I was got in college and was on the rodeo team, rode, and then I think it was in 1952, I was training some horses for some people and roping horses, and they wanted to go to Tulsa State Fair and me show one of their horses in the quarter horse roping. And I had no idea what that was all about, but anyway, the judge a little bit different then too, but not too much. But anyway, that's how I got involved into the horse show business, and I got interested in in that, and then started riding pleasure horses and halter horses, one thing and another, and then later on, I got real interested in some horses that was selling in a few places, and I went to the King Ranch and bought a filly down there. A hired hand, now the daughter of Macanuda. Her name was HHD, and I showed her and got her the AQHA championship on her, and then quite a few daughters of her got Register of Merits and championships on, and one thing and another, and so it just kind of spread out from there. And moved to Kansas in 1960, got involved here quite a bit, so I've been here since 1960, involved in the horse business, and I'm still working with performance horses and halter horses early, but I also had some that I raised that we raced, and did that for about 2 or 3 years in the 60s, 63, 4, 5 through there, and I quit doing that, and we just strictly concentrated on the performance and halter horses. And I don't know, have been real lucky. The Lord, I guess, has blessed me in a lot of ways in the horse industry, and we've ended up with a lot of champions, and that's been good. And so then it went on, and I've sold all of my performance horses and halter horses. And the last 12 years, I've got back into the racehorse thing again. So I've had to figure out a way that I could go buy real good bred horses for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 and go beat the ones that they're paying $200,000 and $300,000 for. And it's been interesting, but it's kind of hard to do. But but it has been good. So that's what I'm at now. I have 3 horses that's on the track in Oklahoma, and I was telling Denny I don't have to get up and feed in the morning. Don't matter how cold it is, I stay in the house. So other than walking my dog.
Okay, we're having a little technical difficulty. We're going to take about a 2-minute break and do some microphone changing. So if anybody needs to get a drink or anything, you guys you've got your water here and have a little drink, and we'll take about a 2-minute break.